Hi everyone and welcome to my new video. Today we are flipping through two of my old bullet journals which I used in 2020 and 2021. I've also posted a flip through of my very first bullet journal, so go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Without further ado, let's start flipping through my fifth bullet journal which I started using in April 2020. I used another notebook from ACRYLOGRAPH as I really loved my first one. By the way, I have a 10% discount code for ACRYLOGRAPH and some other notebook brands as well, which you can find in the description box. Anyway, I think this still might be my favorite new Bujo setup that I've ever done, as I really love the simple floral line art with some gold watercolor. I got the inspiration from Nadia Journals as she did something quite similar with one of her themes at the time. These spreads were pretty quick to set up through, which I really liked. For April I did this colorful egg theme, and this is actually my all-time least favorite theme because the colors were just not it and I didn't really like how the cover page turned out. I still can't unsee the one egg that looks like a pizza, and I always wondered if someone else could notice that too. By the way, I don't think this theme is necessarily bad, even though I don't like it. The reason why I don't like it is that it just doesn't fit my style or feel very me, if that makes sense. This theme was still a very important learning experience, as I feel like my style improved a lot after this theme. At the time I was actually writing my master's thesis and struggled a lot with procrastination, so I decided to try out the Pomodoro method and added a tracker to my weeklies to keep track of my progress. It worked maybe the first 2 weeks, but then I lost my motivation again. I was supposed to graduate at the end of the spring, but I just couldn't get my thesis ready on time. That's okay though, and I don't regret it, as I probably wouldn't have focused as much on creating content and wouldn't be here making this video if things would have gone differently. Anyway, for my May theme I did quite a colorful theme again, but I really ended up liking it this time, and drawing all the different leaves and flowers took quite long as I added some details in them with my white gel pen. And I think this was the first time when I was doing that. Anyway, I also tried a little bit bolder lettering for my monthly spread and trackers, which I really liked at the time. For my first weekly spread I added the Pomodoro tracker again, but gave up on that with the rest of my weeklies as I just couldn't write my thesis, and seeing the empty tracker was a constant reminder of that. This was definitely my favorite weekly spread in the setup, as I really loved the flower wreaths and using the layout. At this time I saw a lot of creators in Instagram using gouache in their bullet journals, and I really wanted to try that out as it seemed like a fun medium. So I ended up making this simple gouache landscape for my June cover page, and it instantly became my new favorite theme as I loved the colors and gold details. I remember that I got over 1,000 likes on some of my Instagram posts, which felt crazy as I never thought so many people would see my art. I was really excited about that, but at the same time I started to feel more pressure to keep making good art, if that makes sense, and I started to really struggle with coming up with new themes after this month. Anyway, this theme is still one of my all-time favorites, and I really like how I went for this more abstract look with the rest of the pages. I realized though that I didn't like painting in my bullet journal anymore, as I had to wait for the paint to dry and mixing up the colors took some time too. That's why I decided to use markers again for my upcoming themes. Oh, and this was also the month when I started designing my cover page on a separate notebook first, so I can make some changes to it if I don't like it. For July I did this kind of abstract strawberry theme, which was inspired by Brooke Brasinger's illustration I saw on Pinterest. Like I said earlier, I started to struggle with coming up with new themes, and I wasn't actually a huge fan of this theme at first because it was a lot different compared to my June theme, which I really liked. For some reason, this theme was really popular on Instagram and my account grew a lot, so I guess that made me like it a little bit more. I've also seen some recreations of this theme and seeing them made me really happy, as it's really cool that people have found inspiration from something I've created. This setup took quite long for me to make, as I drew a lot of these strawberry doodles and added some details with white gel pen on top. Now we are looking at my August cover page, and I guess this was another turning point when it comes to my art style. Arthur and Olive had recently released their ACRYLOGRAPH pens, which I obviously had to buy, and I really wanted to create something with them for my next theme. I ended up doing this folk art inspired cover page with a butterfly and flowers, and really enjoyed using the ACRYLOGRAPH pens as they had a much smoother finish and you could layer them on top of each other. This setup again was quite time consuming, as coloring with paint pens takes a little bit longer. And by the way, this was also the month when I first came up with this mood tracker layout that I still use to this day, and you might have seen it too if you have been watching my Plan With Me videos. As I really liked the look of the ACRYLOGRAPH pens, I decided to use them again for my September theme. I wanted to do something fall appropriate, so I decided to do a fox theme but colored it blue to make it stand out a little bit more. Both of these themes were done with the Jewel ACRYLOGRAPH set in the size 0.7 by the way, and I definitely prefer the smaller size of them, as you can use the pens for lettering as well. This again is one of my favorite themes to this day, as I really like how all the spreads turned out and I also really enjoyed using them. I think this was the first month when I started adding golden sparkles to my spreads, and I love how they look when you flip through the pages. Anyway, like I said earlier, I really struggled with writing my thesis during this time, and because of that I decided to make a spread for my master's thesis where I can write down some important deadlines and break the thesis down into small steps so writing it wouldn't feel as difficult. On the right side I made a time tracker so I could see how much time I was spending writing the thesis, and I was using the Pomodoro method, but I don't think that it worked very well for me because I couldn't get in the flow of writing when I was focusing for only 25 minutes and then having a short break. Anyway, as you can see, the tracker worked for me for the month of September, but after that I kinda forgot to use it and lost my motivation again. I was going to do a dog theme for October at first because my parents got a puppy, but I felt like I just couldn't get the look I wanted with the theme, so I ended up doing this harvest theme instead. I used markers for the vegetable doodles and colored the background with black gouache. I did really like how the cover page turned out, but this theme didn't perform very well on Instagram, so that made me like it a little bit less, unfortunately. I try not to let the numbers affect me too much, but as my previous themes had been doing really well, I was probably expecting that this theme would perform like that too. Anyway, I forgot to use my bullet journal on some days as I spent a lot of time at my parents' house taking care of their new puppy. I can't believe he's 2 and now an adult dog. Puppies grow up super quickly. As my October theme was again quite time consuming because I painted some of the background black, I wanted to do something more simple for my November theme, and I decided to do an abstract theme with some paint pens that I bought from a local bookstore, and this theme was really fun to set up as I could just draw some random blobs and there was no right or wrong way of doing it. This theme also performed very well on Instagram, which I was happy about. I still really like this theme, but wouldn't probably do it again, at least with this color palette, as I like using a little bit softer colors these days. In December, I decided to recreate my reindeer theme from last year, but this time I used ACRYLOGRAPH pens for it. This theme is still one of my all-time favorites and probably somewhere in the top 3. I'm just really proud of this cover page illustration, as I can't believe I was able to create something like this without looking at any kinds of reference photos, and I think it turned out really cute. By the way, I have posted a Christmas card tutorial where you can find a step-by-step tutorial on this illustration, so definitely go check that out if you would like to try it yourself or see how I drew it. I will leave a link to that in the description box. Anyway, I kept the rest of the pages quite simple and added just some hollies for decorations. Next we are moving on to my 2021 journal, which I have flipped through once before on my channel, but I wanted to include it in this video as well because I didn't talk about the spreads in the previous video. I used this beautiful grey Fuji Sun journal that Notebook Therapy kindly gifted to me. The paper is very similar as in Archer and Olive notebooks, as both have 160 GSM paper, which is quite thick. I felt like I couldn't top off my previous Bujo setup, so I decided to keep this setup super simple and neutral for this time. For January, I doodled some wintry items and clothing and went for a light blue color palette. I remember that this theme performed very well on Instagram, but it wasn't my favorite for some reason. Maybe because I really loved my December theme, and now looking back I do really like this theme, but it brings back some memories of being stressed, so it's still not my favorite. I started working really hard on my thesis this month, so I would finally get it done. And because of that, I didn't have energy to set up very decorative weeklies for the last weeks of January. Here is my theme for February, and I still really like this one. I was inspired by folk art and wanted to combine that with the upcoming Valentine's Day. This theme was surprisingly quick to set up because I didn't add any details on the leaves and kept the rest of the pages pretty simple. This was the last month when I was working on my thesis, and I didn't use my journal as much, as you can see. Sometimes trackers and spreads end up looking quite empty, but that's okay, as you can always pick up your journal again next month. Anyway, because I knew I was going to be busy with my thesis, I decided to set up all of my weekly spreads at once and tried out Dutch Door Weekly so I could save some time when decorating the spreads. Because my audience had grown quite a lot over the last year, I wanted to do a theme related to endometriosis again, as I would be able to spread more awareness. I wanted to do something a little bit more simple this time, so I went for a black and white theme with gold as an accent color. I really love how this theme turned out, and I guess this would be somewhere in the top 5 of my favorite themes. I just really like how the gold looks on the pages and how simple the spreads are. I was able to return my thesis in February, so in March I had a lot more time for myself and felt more relaxed. This was also the first month when I tried out making a monthly review spread, as I wanted to write down my feelings after I got my thesis done. It felt so good that I didn't have to worry about that anymore, and I could move on to the next chapter in my life, as now I would finally graduate from university. In April, I decided to kind of recreate an old idea and do a bunny theme again, but with my current style. I had recently bought the tropical set of the ACRYLOGRAPH pens and wanted to use them for my setup. Even though I really like this cover page, I got a little bit bored with drawing the same doodles for every spread, so I wasn't as motivated to use my journal. I also was struggling at the time because now that I had graduated from university, I had no idea what I should do next. I had realized that I didn't want to be a teacher, even though I had studied elementary teacher education and didn't really know what else I wanted to do instead. This is something that I'm still trying to figure out, by the way, and it has been very challenging for me as I always get questions like, "What do you do for a living?" or "Have you found a job yet?" when I'm meeting new people or seeing relatives. I just thought I would share this because some people, especially on TikTok, have assumed that my life is super organized just because my bullet journal looks nice and I use it in the most days. You can bullet journal even if your life is a mess, and that has definitely been the case for me. Here's my May cover page, and for this month I decided to do a picnic theme. I again struggled with coming up with this theme, but I do really like how it turned out, and I think this theme was another turning point when it comes to my style, as I realized I like neutral colors more, and I also started to add more details to my doodles. I decided to try out this happy tracker layout again, and I really love how the spread looks all filled in. I really enjoyed drawing the gingham patterns and added those to my weeklies as well, because that was a quick and simple way to make the spreads look more interesting. This was a fun collab spread with other Finnish bullet journal creators on Instagram, and I did a spring and summer bingo and very Finnish quote page on the right side, and I really like how this turned out. Here are also some stickers that I made near August. I wanted to see how they would look in my bullet journal, so I glued them on this page, which was empty at the time. My June theme was inspired by Finnish midsummer, and I again remember struggling a lot with coming up with the idea, but this theme turned out to be my new favorite and I still really like it. Even though I loved this theme, I didn't end up filling all the spreads as it was summer and I didn't need my bullet journal as much. This often happens during the summer, especially when I'm not at home. In May I started making reels on Instagram, which was a lot of fun, and I was excited to create my weekly spreads again. I really love how all the weeklies turned out this month, and the flower wreath layout is definitely my favorite one. By the way, I decided to add brown drop shadows to the plant doodles, and I really love how that looks. For July, I wanted to recreate the lion theme from 2 years ago, but with a little bit different style. I really liked how this cover page turned out, as the lion looks very calm and the background added a nice pop of color. This theme, however, didn't do so well on Instagram, so I was a bit disappointed about that, as I really liked it. I used some Tombow Dual brush pens to color the lion, but for the sunflowers and the background I used ACRYLOGRAPH pens from Cool Fall set. This theme took a little bit longer to set up as the sunflowers had quite a lot of details, and using paint pens takes a little bit longer as well. In August I wanted to do a gardening theme because I thought that would suit the month well. I wanted to use a little bit more neutral colors this time and drew a lot of different doodles so I don't get bored of drawing the same things over and over again. I love how this theme turned out and I had a lot of fun creating it. I also used my bullet journal more compared to the last 2 months as summer was coming to an end. This month I actually found out that 2 of my Instagram reels had been stolen from my account and uploaded to YouTube without any credits, and I was really upset about that, as I usually spend maybe 3 hours on making just one reel, and then someone else got a lot of views with that by doing none of that work by themselves. Luckily I was able to get those videos down, but that didn't really make me feel better as the account had already benefited a lot from stealing my work. I decided to create my own YouTube channel and start posting reels there as well, so this wouldn't happen again. I also started thinking about filming longer videos as I now had a lot more time because I wasn't studying anymore. By the way, I would highly recommend always adding watermarks to your content if you end up posting it to social media, as unfortunately many people steal your work and repost it without asking about it first, so adding a watermark can make it at least a little bit more difficult. Anyway, now we get to September, and this was the month when I started filming Plan With Me videos here on YouTube. I really love how this mushroom theme turned out, and it's definitely one of my all-time favorite themes as it was something that I created from scratch without any reference photos. Editing and making the video was a lot of work, but I really enjoyed it and it felt good to learn so many new things as well. I want to say a big thank you for supporting my channel and watching my videos. It really means a lot to me, and hearing that you have enjoyed watching these videos makes me really happy. Anyway, this was the last month when I used this journal, and we are now looking at the last pages. I will flip through the last 2 journals near the end of the year, as this video would have been way too long if I included the rest of 2021 in it. Hope you found some inspiration from this video and it was interesting for you to watch. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and maybe a mushroom emoji in the comments if you are still here. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye!